Welcome to Electrify Expo Industry Day here in Long Beach. Again, I am your host, Matt Teskey, along with Loren McDonald.
Loren McDonald, and really excited to be back again this year. I know I've seen many people strolling in that I saw here last year. We had an amazing event last year. And you know, Saturday and Sunday is all about the expo and consumers being able to go out and experience all these amazing electric cars and trucks, as well as the scooters and e-bikes and other forms of electric mobility. But Matt, today is about all of you. Today is about the industry. Today is about learning from each other, listening to a lot of these great sessions, panels and speakers, and learning about and discussing the opportunities and the obstacles as we transition to electric mobility around the world and in the US.
And then this day wouldn't be possible without the sponsors that we have here today. And so number one, we'd like to thank Bridgestone as the presenting sponsors here for Electrify Expo Industry Day, but also the automakers that have been a part of the Electrify Expo, some since day one, including brands like Volvo. But we've been growing the automotive OEM family that are taking part in the Expo. And that includes adding this year brands like Ford as well as Tesla.
And as you look around, you see a lot of the different amazing cars here and stuff. There's also going to be some exclusives this year at this event. So for the first time ever, outside of the New York Auto Show, this is going to be the very first time that Kia will reveal the EV9, so we're really excited about that. And again, to have Tesla join us this year, as well as Ford. And Matt, I know you're really excited about this, but I'm really excited. The Ford F-150 Lightning, outside they're actually going to have it set up with a grill.
I do like that, because what it makes me think of is, it's my favorite kind of V2G.
V2G?
Vehicle to grill.
Vehicle to grill. Oh my God, Matt, you had to go there, right?
Sorry.
Just when people were confused.
Get it trending right now.
Just when people were confused with all the different V2 whatevers.
But that's marketable. Vehicle to grill.
You had to go with vehicle to grill. And there's a rumor that they might actually be serving Watt-a-burgers from the grill.
Wow. Wow. Look at us go.
Yeah.
Off stage you go.
We can only go uphill from there.
Well, we do want to discuss the agenda for today's Industry Day, but actually before we get to the agenda, we'd actually like to ask you a question. Again, for those of you here, stakeholders from the industry, we want you to take part interactively in today's event, and that's going to be including some QR codes you're going to see up on the screen. So we invite you right now to take out your smartphones and scan this QR code. We have a question for you. Which part of the industry are you from? We want to know who you are. And so as you're answering that question, really this is what it's about. It's not just about cars, it's about electric mobility. And that's what we're going to be showcasing, obviously, at the Expo. But even today, discussions, panels, breakouts, presentations are going to cover a lot of different topics. So we want to get a good sense of who's represented here today in the audience.
Actually in the room. And as it's filling out, we're seeing it's juggling quite a bit. But I think as you and I expected, Matt, that most people are in the automotive and EV charging industry, and right now we're seeing kind of a...
I'm waiting for that first retail hospitality. It's going to be in there.
It's on the rise, right?
So, but a lot of automotive, a lot of EV charging, so that's really a big part of the focus. But again, micromobility, utility, energy, government, we're going to cover a lot today. And so with the panels and presentations that we do have, we're going to cover a lot of these topics. And that includes some breakout sessions as well as some networking. And so a lot of what you're going to see today is going to be here in this main room, but for the breakout sessions, you're going to be exiting stage to your left out these doors, and you make a left and go down the hall, you'll see some signs that will take you to some additional breakout sessions as well as networking events throughout the day.
And I've actually timed it. It takes about 2 minutes or so to walk down there, so make sure you account for that.
Did your pedometer kick in?
Yeah. No, I pulled out the iPhone and timed it and locked it. And after Matt and I are done with the welcome here and the housekeeping, I have the honor and the privilege to do sort of the state of the industry talk. We're going to walk through where we are today and where we're going, a lot of statistics and stuff. And then we're going to move into sort of the regular part of the day with the fireside chats, the panels, the working lunch, and the afternoon sessions.
And that'll take us all the way to 2 p.m. Now, at 2 p.m., that's when the Industry Day is going to close out, but that gives you something special. It's a 3-hour window of time till 5 p.m. to experience the Expo before the public. So tomorrow there is going to be a sea of people here throughout the weekend taking in that experience, but today you get a private experience to see everything, including the automobiles, also the micromobility. But then also, as Loren mentioned earlier, if you look around the room, you'll notice there are some customized vehicles here as well. This will be the first year we're kicking off Electrify Show Off, and that's going to be starting here this weekend at Electrify Expo.
And after you're done test driving all these amazing cars and trucks and scooters and e-bikes and stuff, one of my favorite parts of any conference is we're going to come back and go to the networking session, which is right out here at Bogart's, and wrap it up with, I'm guessing at that point, Matt and I will be ready for a libation. I do forecasting for a living, and I'm pretty confident in that forecast for today.
Well, you're going to be doing that afterwards. Yeah. Obviously, people are going to be outside.
Yeah, after they drive, we'll come back and do that. Yeah.
So when you're outside, obviously getting a chance to look at brands also from the micromobility side, like Giant, One Wheel, and Cake. But also, once everything's closed out, 5 p.m. hits, it's really going to be a moment to just also do some additional networking. So, but before I hand things off to Loren here, before we really kick things off with the state of the industry, we do have one additional question for you. So we want to get a sense from you, the audience, how do you feel we're going to be with the sales of electric vehicles moving forward? What percentage of vehicles will be plug-ins by 2032?
Is that going to be less than 20%? Is that 20 to 39%, 40 to 59%, or 60% or greater?
Are we looking at optimism? Are we looking at realism? Are we looking at skepticism?
Yeah, no, this is great. It looks like most people are in the 20 to 39% range. Ooh, which 40 to 59. People are getting more optimistic as time goes on, but 60% is down there a bit, but actually it's good to see that less than 20% are in the 5%
or in the minority right now.
Yeah,
things are getting electrified, that's the point. So, well, as we kick things off, I want to hand the stage to Loren McDonald. It is for your state of industry. It's going to be a great presentation, so without further ado, Loren, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Matt. Are we ready? We ready to get electric with some statistics? All right. Cinch up that safety belt. Let's get going. The Biden administration has set out a target of reducing greenhouse gases, easy for you to say, Loren, in the U.S. by 2030. The EPA, as many of you know, has come out with some very aggressive emissions requirements for the automakers, and by their estimate, in 2032, in order for the automotive industry to meet those emissions requirements, we would need to have 67%, so basically 2/3 of every new vehicle sold in America be electric, a BEV or a plug-in hybrid. So before I get into actually answering that question and if that's possible, let's step back and look at where we are today. So you've all seen charts like this, right? We're finally, after several years of sort of basically little significant growth in EV sales, in 2022, we actually reached more than 7% of EV sales in the US, again, both BEV and plug-in hybrid being electric as part of new sales, right? That was roughly a 3x increase in EV sales share, and we reached about 930,000 unit sales. Again, just under 3x, so pretty significant growth. And I'm forecasting for this year, subject to what happens with interest rates, economic conditions and things like that, if we continue at the pace that we are so far this year, we could hit as much as 1.3 million in new vehicle sales being electric. Again, both BEV and plug-in hybrid, which would be a little over 9.3% EV sales share, so pretty significant growth. But as we all know, whether it's America, California, Europe, et cetera, EV sales and EV adoption is not an equal opportunity employer, right? EV sales basically differ widely depending upon where you are geographically. So here in California, we surpassed 20% EV sales last year. We are the leader, et cetera. I live up in the Bay Area, and Alameda County, where I was born and raised, hit 37% in Q1. So parts of California are actually going to hit over 40%, right? And there are certain cities like Palo Alto that might be at 50 or 60%. But so different parts of not only the state and the country are widely differing rates. If you look and you go into many states like North Dakota, South Dakota, Louisiana, Mississippi, they're still at 1%. So as great as states like California and Oregon and Washington and a few of the East Coast states are, we still have this wide chasm and this unequal level of EV adoption in the country. But when you add up all the numbers, right, we end up with a figure like 7%. But it's really important when you hear these numbers that you actually sort of pull back the sheets on the data and understand that depending on where you are, it can be widely different, right? Anywhere from like 1% all the way to 40 or 50% EV sales share. The good news is most of you in this room are probably familiar what we call the technology adoption curve, or the Rogers diffusion of innovation, which says that when you hit 16% a share of a market, you're moving into sort of mainstream adoption. So California has already hit mainstream adoption, but most of the rest of the country is several years away from that, and certainly a long way from that 67% target. Some of the things that obviously are driving adoption, we all know range, right? Range anxiety was a real key hurdle for several years, but we're actually starting to get very close to hitting that magic threshold of 300 numbers. Almost every survey of consumers the last 10 years has said that about more than half of people who are considering buying an EV want at least 300 miles of range. We obviously have dozens of electric vehicles out on the market today that have 275, 280, 290, 300, even 400 plus, the Lucid Air, 520 miles of range. So we actually have a huge supply of BEVs of over 300 miles of range. But when you look at it from a median and an average perspective, we're still getting very close, right? Almost 280, 290 miles of range. So range is becoming less of an issue. And an amazing milestone that I think we're going to hit this year, right? In California, many of you may know this, that the Tesla Model Y and the Model 3 were the #1 and 2 selling vehicles last year in California. Not electric vehicles, of any type of passenger vehicle. And they're on the track to do that as well. And by my forecast, the Tesla Model Y could become the 4th highest selling vehicle in America this year. An amazing, amazing feat, right? Only behind the perennial 42-year running Ford F-150, Chevrolet Silverado, and the Ram. And depending on how the economy and different pricing, et cetera, goes, Tesla could even perhaps go into the 3rd spot. I'm forecasting it'll hit at #4, could drop a little bit below that. But I think this is a massive indicator, despite those other numbers I showed, this is a massive indicator of where we're actually at with EV adoption. If we have a model that's going to break potentially in the top 4, that to me says we're getting really close, obviously, to mainstream adoption, at least obviously in some markets. But on the downside, right, what a lot of people don't understand is when we look at all of these EV adoption numbers, everybody focuses on new car sales, this percentage of new EV sales, of new vehicle sales that are electric, right? And so great, we're at over 7%, this is amazing, right? But over the last couple of decades, more than 2/3, typically plus or minus 70% of all vehicles purchased in America each year by consumers are used vehicles, right? We are actually much more driven from an automotive economic perspective in this country by used vehicles. And so when you look at that 70% used vehicles, 1/10 by my estimate, so only 0.7% of the used vehicles that were purchased last year in America were electric. And it's obvious why. There just isn't a big supply, right? For several years, we only had, sales of like 100,000, couple 100,000, right? Now that those, if you look at 2018 when the Tesla Model 3 came to market, things like that, We're starting to see cars come off of 3-year, 4-year leases. We're starting to see those numbers get bigger. So right now, it's a real problem. The key challenge with affordability with EVs is A, that there just aren't a lot of new models that are under like $30,000. But the real key to affordability in EVs is going to be when we have a big supply of used vehicles. And there's not really much we can do to move that. It's just a matter of time, right? The more new vehicles that we buy, and then they cycle out into used. And so it's going to be really not until later this decade when we see really some significant numbers in growing that sort of affordability with used EVs. All right, let's switch to charging, right? So when we look at the EV market, obviously range is key, number and type of models, affordability, et cetera, but that brings us to charging. Charging is really, in my belief, sort of the biggest issue of both driver and potential hurdle to EV adoption for consumers, right? And if you look at last year, we had roughly about 130,000 public DC fast chargers and level 2 chargers. And if you take, I'm not a big fan of using the ratio of EVs to chargers, but it's a common comparison that people like to use. And so it was about 17 or so to 1. In other words, 17 EVs to every 1 DC fast charger and level 2 in America. If you take that ratio and roll it forward to my forecast of 2030, that means we would need 22 times as many public chargers, 2.8 million from about 130,000 today. I actually don't believe we're going to need anywhere near that because we're going to see increased speed of chargers, going to see better utilization. Right now, a lot of chargers only have 1 or 2 sessions a day. That can bump up to 10 or a dozen. Charging speed, again, is going to increase. And I think the most important thing really is education, right? We have to get people considering EVs stop thinking about and comparing to gas stations. I hate that. Let's stop comparing EV charging to the gas station experience. I believe as a 3-time EV owner, probably the best benefit of owning and driving the EV is the ability to pull into your garage and plug in and go to sleep and wake up in the morning with a full battery, right? The problem is that about half of American households do not have that opportunity. Whether they live in an apartment, a condo, urban city, where it could be in a house or something, but they don't have a garage or whatever it is. And so I believe that while we're spending these tens and tens of billions of dollars of federal, state, et cetera money building out those fast chargers between Montana and Wyoming, so people have the confidence they can take a road trip, is absolutely key. But I believe that most consumers, first and foremost, when they're considering an EV, think about how can I charge on a daily basis, right? And so I believe that we really need to rethink some of our investment and shift it to getting it into multifamily and condos and things like that, so that people actually, if they're considering an EV, they have the confidence that they can charge every day, if that's what they choose, where they live. So I think we need a fundamental shift in how we're thinking about charging. All right, so I'm going to wrap up here with a few slides and talk about the future and go back to that very beginning. Is 67% EV sales share actually even possible? So this is the slide and the chart I want to imprint on your brain today. If there's anything you take away from my talk today, I want you to think about and keep this chart in mind. And that is, if you take that 67% EPA target that they said, again, the idea is that with the EPA emissions that they believe in order for the automakers to comply with that, we're going to need basically 2/3 of every new vehicle to be electric in 2032. This is what that growth curve might look like when we go from 7% last year up to 67% in 2032. That would be amazing if it happens, right? But let's pull back the onion a little bit and look at what that actually means. So we would hit about 19% of actually vehicles on the road, what's called VIO, vehicles in operation. So an amazing feat of about 1 out of every 5 vehicles on the road in America at that level would be electric, 1 out of 5. But what's the flip to that? That means 80% of the vehicles on the road are going to be gas-powered, right? And that means we're going to go from about 282 million gas-powered vehicles on the road in America today to, by my forecast, about 272 million, okay? Not a significant drop. And why is that? Is because cars are lasting longer, they're getting more expensive, people are holding on to them longer. We have more than 25% of the cars on the road in America today are 25 years or older, right? And that's only getting longer, right? And even if I'm wrong, even if the number is, even if it's only 250 million, the only way we have a chance, right, of reducing greenhouse gases by 50% would be to get rid of 125, 150 million gas-powered vehicles. This is America, folks. That ain't going to happen, right? We are not going to get rid of 125, 150 million gas-powered vehicles off the road in the next 10 years. So what is our option, right? All of you in this room are creating a great future. We're driving electric vehicle sales. We need to continue to do that. But that only solves half of our battle, right? Again, we're not going to get rid of 125, 150 million gas-powered vehicles, right? But what we can do, and that's why Electrify Expo and events like this are so important, exposing people not just to electric cars, but all the other different types of mobility options, electric bikes, scooters, et cetera. We have to get people out of their big gas-guzzling SUV to drive 2 miles to Trader Joe's to pick up some oatmeal and $2 chuck, and get instead him to think about taking an e-bike, a scooter, walking, whatever. We've got to shift people. Again, our only shot at this massive opportunity and target and goal of reducing greenhouse gases by 50% is to get people to drive their gas cars less, because they're not going to get rid of them, right? And the good news is we're already seeing great movement towards this. If you see there on the chart on the right, e-bikes have actually been outselling full BEVs the last several years, so we're on the right track. So folks, this is a monumental task and opportunity. Again, we've got to continue growing EV sales, but the other part of this, our collective moonshot in this room, is we've got to also, in parallel with getting people, Americans, to adopt EVs, we've got to get them out of their vehicles and into other forms of new and electric mobility. Folks, we can make it happen. Let's make it happen. Thank you very much. Plugs, not pumps.